Welcome back to another episode of Train for Life Fitness Podcast. Today we're going to do a deep dive into the very physics of strength. We're talking about the two phases that define pretty much every repetition you perform.
Concentric and eccentric movements.
Exactly. And if you're already into this topic, these aren't just, technical jargon. They're really the keys to unlocking different responses in your body. Our mission today is to get past just saying push and lower. We really want to break down the biology at play, how the nervous system is involved, and really why balancing these two is what makes the difference.
Right. The difference between just moving weight and actually engineering strong, durable muscle.
Because if you're only focused on the lift, you're absolutely only getting half the picture.
And that really is the core issue, isn't it? Most people, their training focuses on the part that looks impressive, the concentric phase.
The big push.
The big push, yeah. That's where you see the most effort. But that controlled, sometimes even slow return to the start?
The eccentric part.
That's where the real architectural work is happening. The stabilization, the deepest potential for strength. Once you get the science of both, you just stop wasting reps.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's start with the one everyone knows. We'll call it the engine room of raw strength.
Yeah.
The concentric contraction.
Right.
So just for the record, this is the phase where your muscle fibers physically shorten as they work against resistance.
You're contracting the muscle to actually move the load.
Think about that powerful drive when you're coming out of the bottom of a heavy squat.
Or pressing the bar off your chest in a bench press.
Exactly. It's that moment of pure effort against the weight. It's the go phase.
And it is absolutely essential because it's what drives speed and power. Concentric training is, at its heart, about boosting your raw ability to move weight quickly.
So for explosive actions.
If you want to be explosive, yeah. Or think about a vertical jump or sprinting or hitting a heavy 1-rep max. You are relying almost entirely on concentric strength for that.
That makes sense.
And what's really fascinating is how the nervous system handles it. A concentric lift needs a much higher neural drive to recruit the most motor units. Your brain is basically screaming at the muscle, fire everything right now.
Wow, okay.
And that high activation is why it's so critical for starting that muscle growth process. It sets the baseline for your maximum force.
So it's not just the muscle getting shorter. It's about your brain sending this massive signal to get every possible fiber to fire in that one moment.
Precisely. It's the immediate, high output, all hands on deck effort. But the metabolic cost is also really high. You burn through your energy, your ATP, much faster.
Which is why that's the first thing to fail when you get tired.
That's why it fails. It's incredibly powerful, but it's very resource intensive.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It's the burst, the acceleration. So let's flip that on its head now. Let's go from the push to the control, the eccentric contraction.
Yes, the part people usually rush.
And they're missing out on some of the biggest gains, right? So define it for us again. How is it the exact opposite?
Okay, so eccentric movement is the phase where the muscle is still active, it's still under tension, but it's lengthening under the load.
So you're not relaxing.
Not at all. You're resisting the weight as it tries to come down. You're decelerating it, not accelerating it.
Okay, so like the descent of a pull-up where you slowly lower yourself down.
Perfect example. Or that controlled return of the barbell to the rack.
Yeah.
You are fighting gravity every single inch of the way down.
Right. So what's happening biologically in that moment? Because it feels so intense and the benefits seem, I don't know, almost disproportionate in a good way.
This is the aha moment for anyone who's serious about strength. The eccentric phase gives you two, massive and unique benefits. First, for pure muscle growth, hypertrophy, it's just unparalleled.
Why though? What's it doing differently?
It's because eccentric movements put enormous stress on the muscle's internal structure. We're talking about specific structural proteins.
Okay, now we're getting into the deep science.
We have to talk about titin. Titin is this huge spring-like protein inside your muscle fibers. It's a huge player in passive tension and just holding everything together.
Okay.
When you lift eccentrically, controlling that heavy weight as the muscle gets longer, you stretch and stress titin way more than you ever could during a concentric lift.
And that stretching is the trigger.
That's the trigger. It kicks off a specific signaling cascade that leads to greater muscle fiber recruitment. And yes, those micro tears we always hear about.
Okay, we need to clarify that. People hear tear and they think injury. How is this controlled stress different from, say, a muscle strain?
That's a crucial distinction. A strain is an uncontrolled damaging force that just rips fibers. This is different. The microtrauma from a controlled eccentric is a deliberate, localized mechanical stress.
Signal.
It's a signal to the body to start rebuilding. It's the stimulus for the muscle to rebuild itself thicker, stronger, and more resilient. You're creating productive damage, not an injury.
That's fascinating. So it's all about how the stress is applied. Now, beyond just getting bigger muscles, what does this do for real-world strength and stability?
This is the other big one. It leads to superior strength gains because, and this is wild, you can handle a higher load eccentrically than you can lift concentrically.
You can lower more than you can lift.
Exactly. Think about your max bench press. You can typically lower about 110% of that weight safely. Training with that heavier load teaches your muscles and tendons how to stabilize and control massive forces.
Which then helps you lift more later.
It translates directly into a higher concentric capacity later on, and that stability is directly linked to injury prevention. If your muscles are good at decelerating and absorbing force, they're much less likely to strain.
So training eccentric is really about making the muscle tough, structurally sound, not just big.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, so just to recap, concentric gives us explosive output, that high neural signal for speed. And eccentric delivers the deep structural growth, stability, and the ability to handle even heavier loads. Right? Which brings us right into the synergy of training them both. Right. I mean, if one is power and the other is control, focusing on just one has to create a weak link in the chain.
It absolutely does. If you just rush the lowering phase, you are neglecting all that tighten activation we just talked about. You're leaving those stability gains on the table.
And that leads to imbalances.
Huge imbalances. You might have great peak strength, pushing up, but you have poor deceleration control. That's a recipe for injury, especially in sports where you have to stop and change direction quickly.
You're building an accelerator with no brakes.
Exactly. But when you train both phases with equal focus, the results are just. They're exponentially better and more holistic.
So let's talk about efficiency.
Well, this is key. To produce the same amount of tension, an eccentric contraction uses way less metabolic energy than a concentric one. So by deliberately slowing down that eccentric, you maximize the muscle's time under tension.
Without gassing yourself out too quickly.
Right. You're getting this massive mechanical stimulus for growth using less energy. It lets you sustain that high-impact stress for longer.
Which has to lead to better performance overall.
No question. The synergy is undeniable. For an athlete, it just creates a more well-rounded machine. Think about a sprinter.
Okay.
The concentric phase drives the push off the blocks, but the eccentric phase in the hamstrings and quads is what protects the knee and hip when they land on each stride. Together, it builds strength and muscular endurance.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second, though. Some training styles, like powerlifting, they actually encourage a faster eccentric phase to get more volume in.
That is a great question, and it really gets to the heart of why your intention matters so much.
It depends on the goal.
It always depends on the goal. If your number one goal is maximal strength and high volume, then yes, a very slow eccentric can be counterproductive. It'll fatigue the muscle locally and limit your reps.
So it's a trade-off, volume versus tension.
It's volume versus tension, exactly. However, for building muscle and for long-term joint health, a tempo that emphasizes the eccentric is superior. We even see specific ratios, right?
Yeah, talk about tempo.
For pure power, you might do a 1.0.1 tempo, 1 second up, 1 second down. But if you're chasing growth and resilience, you should be looking at a 1.0.3 or maybe even a 2.0.4 tempo.
2 seconds up, 4 seconds down.
A long, controlled negative, prioritizing that tighten activation and stability over just banging out reps.
That's the kind of advanced application I think you really need, connecting the tempo to your specific goal. So how do we take all of this, the neural drive, tighten tempos, and apply it, tomorrow in the gym?
The practical takeaway is actually pretty straightforward, but it takes discipline.
I can imagine.
You have to stop seeing the number of reps as the goal. The goal is the intentionality of each rep. You have to consciously give a purpose to both the up and the down phase.
Okay, give us an example, a compound movement.
Let's take a barbell row or the lat pull down, where stability is so important. When you pull the weight, the concentric, it can be explosive. A quick, powerful 1 second pull.
Right.
But when you lower it back down, the eccentric, you must fight it. Control that weight stack, aiming for that 3, 4, even 5 second negative.
That's got to force you to stay stable, right?
Yeah.
You can't let your core get loose or your shoulders slump if you're fighting for 5 seconds.
Precisely. It turns the eccentric phase into its own active stabilization exercise. And for your experienced listeners, the ones looking for that next level, You can consider super maximal loading. This is an advanced technique. You'll need a partner. You load the bar with a weight you actually cannot lift concentrically.
Whoa, really?
And you only train the eccentric phase. Let's say your max press is 225. You load 245. Your partner helps you lift it. And then you alone fight that 245 slowly down for, say, 6 to 8 seconds.
That sounds intense.
The shock to the system is an incredible way to boost the structural capacity of the muscle and connective tissue far beyond what concentric training can do alone.
That is a genuine aha moment. Moving beyond just slow down the negative to actually training heavier than you can lift, it turns every workout into a kind of a calculated engineering problem.
I like that.
So what does this all mean for you? The central takeaway here is that every single lift has two distinct jobs. By intentionally managing the concentric part, the push, the power, and the eccentric part, the control, the stability, you're getting so much more out of your workout.
Maximizing time under tension, building more durable muscle.
And leveraging those specific protein responses, like Titan, to build a far more resilient and complete physique. You now have the knowledge to approach every single rep, not as one task, but as a complete cycle. Powerful output and protective control.
And remember that tempo? That 1.0.3 or that 2.0.4, start applying that slow, intentional control. That controlled negative is the silent driver of your long-term strength and stability.
Absolutely. Now that you have this advanced understanding, every single rep is a chance for more awareness and more intentional effort. So approach your next set with a dual purpose. Explosive strength on the way up and structural engineering on the way down. Go make those gains count. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and in the meantime, let's roar.